there's an element of me that a mass consumer show almost had become your like chucking, yeah, it's a tin of sardines scenario of get as many people in and you put a pound sign on the head, and that's great in many ways from a business point of view, but actually you've got to have a bit more of a real, for me it was going, what do I stand for, what do I feel?
Looking at what you're doing now, we can't really talk about what you're doing now until your decision to leave BodyPower in 2021, I think, right?
Yeah,
Was that a gradual process where you decided that you wanted to do your own thing? Just interested in kind of your thought process, having been with the company for so long and seeing it change and maybe seeing demand peak and then wane. What was your thought process between going out on your own?
um I guess there's a few things going on behind the scenes that I didn't agree with. That was probably one of the big things that
Can you give
over the top
details, Steve?
was that.
I've got to ask, can you give me any details? Was that in terms of strategic direction? Was it in terms of
Yeah, yeah, I think there was strategic direction, there was knowledge market, there was some, I don't know what the right term, some for me didn't feel right morally, which was ultimately why I left. But it was very much down to, like I say, when you're leading a brand day to day, and a couple of us were, I felt as though the opportunity was there. And actually, getting to a certain age, you feel as though, right, it's an opportunity. And if I wasn't going to get that opportunity to really to go out and do that and put my mark on it, where was I? So yeah, from my point of view, but the thing for me is I'd always had a foot in what I classify, I guess it's more B2B, the more commercial fitness market. At 20, I'm trying to think, was it 2016? We actually purchased, you probably remember, Leisure Industry Week, LIW, which was the B2B event with all the major kit companies and, far more of the gym operator world, and PTs. And for me, I then built quite a big network there, new people, launched some products. And I education for me, like, not that I was not that it comes from being at school in education, but connecting people and them having the ability to learn and develop themselves. To me, that's what events should be. Whether you go to a brand event, but you can meet in this day and age, you're the influencer that has impacted you in X, Y, and Z. If you can learn from that person, have a conversation, and you can implement it the next day, that's what something should be. So I'd always had the drive to do something a bit different. I think there's an element of me that a mass consumer show almost had become your like chucking, yeah, it's a tin of sardines scenario of get as many people in and you put a pound sign on the head, and that's great in many ways from a business point of view, but actually you've got to have a bit more of a real, for me it was going, what do I stand for, what do I feel? And I wanted to create something that was more for the fitness professional, because over the years I think they've been undercated for massively, in the sense of there's a ridiculous amount of people leave the industry, and there's some brilliant people out there doing education. But once again, if you look at a platform or bringing all of that together, where was it? And then at the time, I guess 21, 22, we're in a different world again where, performance was being talked about a lot. You know, and I put something out the other day again, and I was like, what industry do we actually work in? Because there's so many nuances of, and it's a term, we both know Phil Learney and what Phil does around human performance. But speaking to a few other people, actually, if you break it down, every one of us in the industry is trying to help humans perform better, whether that be from training, media, eating, everything like that. So it's quite interesting that point of view. But I just felt as though, one, at the time, there was nothing covering a certain part of the market and offering a great experience. And there was a big market that wasn't being catered for. So, for me, I've always been, I guess, speaking to the brands, speaking to athletes, speaking to different people, I always feel as though I've had a real finger on the pulse of where the industry's at. But then how you can create something strategically, working that and looking at the industry from a wide-reaching sort of view.
If you're being completely honest, was there a point when you were still at BodyPower when you knew that the writing was on the wall? I'm talking kind of pre-COVID here and live events being shut down. In terms of big brands pulling out, the likes of Gymshark, deciding they could do their own pop-up, they didn't need you anymore because they'd grown so big. Did you have a sense that I might need to make a decision here because the mass participation fitness event market might be done for?
I'd say no, in the sense of that thought process was back in 2018 when we're all together, and few bigger brands, like you say, were pulling out, and it's like, right, this is the reason why, going back to what we said earlier, is the product in BodyPower needed to shift, because actually it didn't accommodate what the brands were doing and moving forwards with. And then, like you say, whether it be they didn't see a new audience coming to it, it was the same old crowd, or they go, we can do our own community events. That's why in 2019 we changed the layout. And actually it almost gone like that, and it was there, and we were going back up in 2019, 2020. Like, I remember it was the January before COVID, and the figures were looking way beyond what we targeted, and it was going in the right direction. And people like Matt and Carlotta, when she was at like Bear Bells and Nocco, they saw what we were trying to do and bought into it. And I think sometimes is looking at anchor brands, we call like, the buy into the philosophy. And for me, that was going out to them saying, this is what we're going to be doing. We want the support, essentially. And we got that, and it was going in the right direction. And BodyPower was actually, I think it was going through a sale in 2020 as we went into March, and then something blocked it. So it was, yeah, that mindset wasn't a reason for me leaving ultimately. That was back in 2018, roughly, when we said, this is going to become more functional. We've got to create new features, and people don't like change. So you've got a lot of exhibitors saying, oh, I'm not sure about how this is, but it had pretty much 10 years of the same thing. So yeah, that wasn't my ultimate reason for leaving.